event for Pride Month in 2024. And I think it's a great way to sort of close it out with an interview with the Greens. The Greens were in 2019 Outstanding Virginians nominated or awarded by Equality Virginia. Do you have your award?
That's our award. Where's the camera?
Oh, it doesn't want to show.
It blurs it though, doesn't it?
What's that?
It doesn't want to show. They yeah, for all their work that they've done for Equality Virginia. And so you also read the bio, but I think we should start out with you all doing just a little introduction of yourselves, like telling us, what a little history, where you're born, that kind of stuff, and then also like how long you've been married and that kind of thing. Who wants to start?
Cool.
I'll start.
Yeah, I'll start. So Ray Green and Kathy Green, we have been married for 44 years. We're cis straight allies and have been active in the LGBT community since 2004.
20 years.
For about 20 years. And we started out our journey with this in Tucson, Arizona, where we were living at the time. So we became involved because
What are you telling your background?
Oh.
You're supposed to be telling them who we are.
Tell them who we are. Okay.
Married couple.
Married couple. Yeah.
Married couple. Yeah.
So I grew up in Southwest Arkansas, went to the United States Naval Academy, graduated in 1980. And during that time, I met my dear wife and we began dating and became engaged and married since 1980, just after graduation from the Naval Academy.
Wow. And Kathy?
I'm Kathy, and my educational background is in nursing, but I will be honest that most of my career was stay-at-home momming, and that worked for us. We were happy, and it was good. I mean, I have done some nursing, and my favorite thing in the world is our kids and grandkids. We have 2 biological children, 2 chosen children, and we have 4 grandbabies.
That's awesome. Yay, that's exciting. So I guess to me, the first question that jumps to mind when I meet a couple like yourselves who are such big advocates for the community is like, why did you think that was important? Like, how did you get into that?
Marriage. I think we have always had gay neighbors, gay friends, co-workers, like in our world, they were gay. We weren't. It was like never an issue. After the 2004 election, I remember reading about marriage amendments. They were amending state constitutions to say marriage could only be between a man and a woman. And I had never crossed my mind that gay and lesbian couples can't marry, and I didn't know what it meant. And so there was an article in our local paper, this was Tucson, Arizona, that there would be a meeting at the local gay community center with information about the marriage amendment, the proposal. And so we went to that meeting, and the rest is history. We learned a lot that night, and joined the committee and joined the team that was fighting the amendment. And I think this is funny. The first night that we went, we had never been in the gay community center before. They thought we were spies from the opposition. This cute little great couple.
We walk in, white, cis, straight, and holding hands, our marriage privilege splashing all over the place. So, who
they told us later
would
they thought we were spies.
Yeah, they thought we were spies for the opposition as that campaign started. But through the course of that campaign, we got to know so many people. And an interesting thing, at least from an ally perspective too, is as we were kind of getting involved in the campaign and getting training from media and that kind of a thing, we wrote our coming out stories as allies also. And I think that that's an important thing for allies to consider as you become more deeply involved in your advocacy and your work with the community. Well, what does it mean to you personally to be an ally of the community? And so that's one of the things that we sort of stumbled across as we were doing our work in Tucson, Arizona for the marriage campaign.
It was a lot of education. We, like Ray mentioned, we had to learn media and how to answer questions appropriately from the media. And we actually like attended a class they called LGBT 101, so that we would get language correct and definitions correct. Sexual orientation is not gender identity. And so, these are things that, the privileged straight cis couple needed to learn. And then we tabled any place that would let us in the door. And so it was, I feel like as a long married couple, we were able to reach an audience that maybe the lesbian on the table or the gay man on the table, that we could reach, married people and explain that, gay people are not a threat to us. We tabled events, we spoke at a lot of panels at colleges. And I am happy to say that we defeated the marriage amendment in 2006 in Tucson, Arizona. We don't get a lot of credit for that because we lost 2 years later, because they got so much outside money. It was a red state, and we, boots on the ground, we defeated an amendment in Arizona. I think they were surprised that.
Yeah, I'm definitely surprised.
It surprised even national folks.
Yeah. So, I hear people say, well, why is marriage so important? Like, they can, get a contract signed and you have, the same rights. I mean, what would you say to people like that?
Yeah, so I would say, contracts can be broken or determined to be null, but and I guess the same could be said of marriage. But when Kathy and I got married in 1980, she got instant rights as my next of kin.
Instant.
My mother and my father were no longer at the top of that heap. It was Kathy instantly. And there are so many unspoken, sort of unenumerated rights that go along with marriage. And, one example that Kathy frequently cites is just imagine all the time that you're doing business travel and you or even vacation and you go sign up for a rental car. If you want a second driver on that and they're not your next of kin, that costs you money every time. And so you can imagine traveling as a longtime couple that is not married, what does that cost build up over time? And that's just one example of many, many, many of the benefits of marriage. And so, I often hear gay friends say, we never imagined that to be in our future, that we would ever have the capability to be married. And now you actually have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's marriage. In the process, we learned that marriage is a public good. When a couple gets married, they're basically telling society, I'll look after my partner. We're going to be a family unit. It's a stabilizing thing in society. So to have, I just think of so many couples we know that have been together longer than we have, especially 20 years ago when we were working on marriage. We have marriage today. I hope it won't be threatened. I think of couples that were together longer than we were with none of the protections that we had. They stayed in their relationships with no financial protection. Society was a threat, and they stayed together. Like, having those folks join the institution of marriage was really a good thing for marriage. If anything, it strengthens this. I mean, I like being married. I'm not trying to tell anyone they need to be married, do what you want. But I think marriage has been good for us. I think it's a good, like I said, they call it a public good because it's a stabilizing thing. So I just, I worry about a recent Supreme Court decision that one of the justices said that Obergefell was a bad decision. I worry that there could be threats to marriage equality.
Yeah. I mean, and I think probably because you were in the military, Ray, it comes with just even more, really, because you're talking about where your spouse is overseas, and like you talked a little bit about, or you told me a story about like what would happen when you come home. Like Kathy would be there to meet you, and
So I mentioned the Naval Academy. I was commissioned and served for 6 years, and I was in a flight squadron that deployed overseas. And typical when you come back from deployment, there are families lined up along the flight line to see you come in and land and get off the plane, and they approach you directly. Kisses and hugs and all of those family things. And serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and having colleagues, having fellow officers, fellow squadron mates return home, and there's no one even allowed inside the gates of the base, much less on the flight line, to be able to meet your loved one. And I've had Naval Academy classmates and other alum tell us stories of how they would just walk off of the ship, walk off of the flight line, and go out the gates to a hotel or a coffee shop or some other place to say, "Hey, I'm home, and we can have our reunion now. We can't have it in public. We can't have that celebration of families being home and together again." So I think that's just really a chilling course of events that we witnessed.
My privilege, like my hetero, my straight privilege, still to this day punches me in the face sometime. I experience it. Never. Well, I mean, to be honest, Ray served before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Ray served when everyone was closeted, and so he knows. We know that he had gay, classmates and shipmates and everything, but no one was out.
No.
No one could be out, back in the 80s. So it never entered my mind that, that single, flight officer, he just would leave the gathering and then go off base. Like, oh God, like you find out 20 years later, he was meeting his beloved in the parking lot of a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Like I just, I learned so every day about my privilege, that we have enjoyed for so long, and that, good loving couples had to hide. We're definitely making progress.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But
we are definitely making progress for sure. Can you imagine like having this conversation 20 years ago or 30 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ray, you talked about the Naval Academy. I mean, you got involved in their sort of LGBT group there. How'd that come about?
This was many years later since my graduation, and so I guess about the time that we really became active in the LGBTQ community, we were aware that I had classmates and that there were midshipmen who are gay. It's just that, it's a matter of statistics. Even if people are not out, that the people exist. And I was looking for an opportunity to support my alma mater. And I went looking for an organization that might be open to having a straight cis white man join an organization to support LGBTQ people who are at the Naval Academy. And I discovered that, there was an organization pretty young at the time, USNA Out, and I joined and became a part of that group. And one of the things that happens with this group of alumni is to support directly the midshipmen who are gay and need their support to make it through the Naval Academy and all of those experiences. But it's so this was certainly during the time of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and very closeted. And so we went to a graduation dinner to honor the midshipmen who were graduating and going out to the fleet to their assignments. And it was really super secret. It was not on campus. It was held in some private home in the greater Annapolis area. And we signed up, we paid for our tickets to go there. And it's so secret that the location is not divulged to you until the day of the event. And midshipmen will come to the event, but they're not in uniform. It's just, it happened to be really very
active duty
very
alumni would
secret.
wear uniforms,
right.
and super secret. Don't Ask, Don't Tell got reversed. And I look at the academy today, they have an on-campus group.
Yeah.
What was it, Prism?
It's
No.
not Prism, it's
One of those rings.
Spectrum.
Spectrum.
Yeah.
They have an actual, like, the gay and lesbian midshipmen are out, and the gay and lesbian alumni can be out. And we have trans officers serving in the fleet. And since we typically attend this annual dinner, and we meet these, they're adults, but I'm calling them kids. We meet these kids from the class of 18 and 20, and they're so smart, and they got appointments to the Naval Academy, and they've spent 4 years studying brainiac engineering, and we're so lucky to have these kids in the service. And I just think, oh my God, 20 years ago they would have been closeted or kicked out. Like, I think of all the veterans
Right.
our age that got discharged.
And we hear so many stories of that.
We educate these people, and we pay all that money to train them, and they serve our nation for 15 years, 13 years, 17 years, and get kicked out before retirement because they were found to be a lesbian or a gay man. And so I'm those were all those things that my straight cis privilege, I wasn't paying attention and didn't realize that we were losing so many talented people.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, it's bad for everyone, including the government, because they invested a lot into these people, and they're really smart. And now you're going to let someone who speaks Arabic go because they're gay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
horrible.
I'm happy to see that we're beyond that, these I keep calling them kids, these young men and women
I call them
officers,
kids
like that they can serve and love who they love and be who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when you get to a certain age, they're kids. If you're below 30,
I can't believe they're letting the babies go to college.
So I think another challenge for, well, anyone, it could be an LGBT person, but I think particularly for cis straight people, is that sometimes you hear jokes from people that are sort of anti-gay, and it's like, so what do you do to when that happens? I mean, I'm sure it's happened.
I have a story that still chokes me up. I speak up. I'm born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Like, blunt is how I am, and so I challenge things like that. But our daughter is a 2005 graduate of Arizona State University, and she attended on they call it the Leadership Scholarship Program, which was leaders, coming in, leaders being trained to be leaders. So she had a mentor who was, I don't know, like a year or two ahead of her, a young girl named Katie. So Katie was her mentor in this program. So Katie was a young leader. And at the end of the year, they would invite the families and they, congratulate the seniors on their way out and all this kind of thing. And we were at one of those events, and these are all, smart, young leadership scholarship students. And Katie repeatedly kept saying, "Oh, that's so gay." Like that just kept coming out of her mouth. And so it's, what is this, like 2007 or something like that, So I got her aside. I didn't say it in front of the people there. And I told her, I said, Kate, you're about to graduate and go out into the world. And I said, that's so gay. We're just not talking like that anymore. It's 2007 or 8 or whatever it was. I said, look around this room. Look at how many gay men and lesbian, look at all the people in this room. You can't, like, we're not using gay as a pejorative anymore, And so she thanked me, for not embarrassing her. And she said she's going to work on it and everything like that. Life goes on. She reached out to me like 10 years later, found me through my daughter, and she became a school teacher. She majored in education, became a school teacher, and became the faculty moderator for their Gay Straight Alliance. Like, this is a girl
Wow.
that grew up with a religious background. And so, like, I think That's So Gay was like something she knew from her life. But she thanked me. And I'm sure there were other things in her, but like, oh my God, like, who knew that? And I think of like the ripple effect of the kids she probably helped, coming up in her school experience. And, so when you talk about I'm going to speak up if you make ethnic jokes and gay LGBT jokes. And, I'm going to speak up because of that experience with this young girl.
That's a great story. I love that one.
Go Sundogs.
I have ASU roots in my, I'm sorry, U of A roots in my family, so I can't say that.
No pity for the kitty.
Yeah, there you go. So I guess what the other thing that strikes me is, like, you both grew up in conservative families. I mean, Ray, you were in the South.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what was it about your life that made you like the kind of person that would go, hey, you know what? I need to support this group of people who don't have rights that I have. Like, how does that happen?
So I think that, there just becomes sort of a turning point if you're open to it, where you have a realization. Because I'll be quite honest with you, being growing up in the South, I grew up with a lot of prejudice, and when we say that, hate is taught, it absolutely is. It's indoctrinated into so many of us. And I was the way that I was. It's how I was raised as a kid and indoctrinated. But going to the Naval Academy and having such a diverse experience of people all around me. I have classmates from all 50 states and some foreign countries as well, oddly enough. But I've kept in touch with a lot of them, and it's just it's sort of a pivotal experience. And I have to say that aha moment for me really didn't happen until much later in life. And I think that it was really our kind of experience in Tucson, Arizona, where we got so deeply involved in that political campaign. But I mean, there were just a number of turning points. I think moving away from home is, changing a venue, just being open to travel and being open to learning, and those kinds of things. I'm not saying that people who are kind of anchored to home are bad people. I think that there's just an experience that
Our experience.
happens, our own experience that happens with us moving around to different parts of the states and just having some other world experiences. Really moving to Tucson sort of opened our hearts to a lot of things. And I think that's a turning point that happened for us. And as we became open to that, we were so well embraced by the gay community. Kathy mentioned, you know, we walked for the first time ever, we walked into a gay community center and we just fell in and felt like we had family there. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
What do you
it was a
think,
good
Kathy?
experience, and I grew up Irish Catholic in Philadelphia, and really, like, we were the stereotype, you know, an Irish Catholic family. I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, Catholic college, you know, and I think it was like part of my DNA. Like that was it was our church, but it was also like our social life and our community, you know, like it's a row house neighborhood of other Catholic families. And I think that as an adult, like I guess I knew I didn't agree with so many things I heard, but I still went to church. And you know, because that was just what we did. But then as adults, we grew away from identifying as Catholic, from going to church and all that kind of stuff. I think for me, that was a big part of it. I mean, and I don't, like, you know, if Catholic folks are listening to me on this thing, like that's my personal experience and my journey. And I think that moving away, like I wonder if I still lived in Philly, surrounded by would I have ever gone into the gay community center? I don't know. But I, you know, my experience, I think leaving Philly, you know, and for Ray leaving Ashdown, Arkansas, like it just opened us up to other people, other experiences.
I mean, it does kind of just reinforce, you know, I grew up in Wisconsin, and so I have a lot of friends from high school who haven't left that town.
Yeah.
And they don't have the same perspective that I do, obviously.
Yes. Right.
And I guess it would be a challenge. Maybe it's, you know, like how do you bring a different perspective to them, I guess. I think maybe part of it is just me being out, even on Facebook, for them to know, like, hey, wow, okay, yeah, I've known her since first grade, and you know,
Actually, I do know someone who's lesbian.
Yeah, it's harder to hate someone that you know, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me, well, of Harvey Milk's thing, which was what was it? Come out wherever you are. Like it was for him, it was all really a lot about just visibility and the fact that when after you have coffee with someone, it's harder to hate them. So let's open it up to questions, because I've been talking for 30 minutes. Does anyone have any questions for the Greens? I see Katina. You want to?
Yes. Hi, my name is Katina, and just a couple questions, comments, so on and so forth.
Sure.
I am a child of the 80s and 90s, and I think, you know, when people like came out, was not like a big issue for me. It's like, okay, yeah, and where are we going for lunch? You know what I mean? It wasn't, you know, for me and where I grew up, even though I grew up in a conservative Christian, you know, family, which has changed a little bit because of my views. Um, y- how, first question is, how would you recommend, you know, talking to other people, because it's a trigger. I get really annoyed when people are like, can't we just like all love each other? I mean, we're all brothers and sisters, right? It doesn't matter who you identify, what gender, if you're gay, straight, you know, whatever.
Sure.
But how would you, and I think as I get older, I get a little bit more annoyed with people that have like these battled, you know, conversations about it, that it's like, why is it still even a conversation? Or how would you like somebody in their 50s having these conversations with people that might be older or younger, or just have a different view? And I'm still confused too on the whole cisgender, because I've never
Oh,
heard of
okay.
that before until
Oh.
this as well. So I'd like a little bit more.
Oh.
I'm like, wait, am I cisgender or?
Um,
So I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Um,
2 questions.
I'm cisgender because I was assigned the gender female at birth, and I identify as female. So my birth certificate said female, and I'm female. That's how I identify. That's how I present. So I am cisgender. Cis means same, like similar, same, cis. So that's the other word that we're typically using is transgender. And those folks were assigned, male or female at birth, and they don't identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. So they identify, as transgender. If they don't identify with male or female, they probably identify as non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's
Mhm.
just a little bit of the terminology, and thanks for asking the question about that. Happy to clarify on terms that we're using so that everybody can come along on the journey, and we don't want people
I mean,
confused.
it's a constant education and evolution as well. Even for myself, sometimes I'm like, oh wait,
Yeah.
what are we doing now? Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean, non-binary has become a really common, I think, and really growing part of the LGBT community,
sure.
LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people who
And
don't identify as either. Yeah.
with regards to talking to people who say, what like, why do we have to have pride, and they're gay, so who cares, why do we have to? It's because our friends who are transgender and lesbian and gay are still threatened. They're still threatened. They don't have like employment protections. You can get fired for being gay, you can get fired for being trans. We still have to fight. And like I said earlier, one of the justices said that Obergefell is under threat, so they could lose that right that we, that.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about Obergefell and
I'm
what
sorry,
that? Yeah.
Obergefell versus Hodges was the case before the Supreme Court that resulted in equal marriage across the United States. It was coming in state by state, but then there was a federal case that went actually to the Supremes, and it was. I love that his name is difficult. Jim Obergefell's name is Obergefell. Couldn't have been like Smith,
Yeah.
So when I say Obergefell, I'm referring to the Supreme Court decision that gave marriage rights across the country. And like that could be threatened. Like, it's like that's a reason to still have pride and to still fight for our friends. Another one is like, just because of like the abuse we heaped on them for the last 100 years, let's have a pride and say, yeah, you're, like let's be out, but let's stop closeting these people. But I would do all of that gently,
Yeah.
not in
Yeah,
Philadelphia.
definitely
Yeah.
agree. I mean, definitely should be celebrated. I believe in equal rights for everybody, and it's just really sad. I think just all of my beautiful family and friends that aren't able to have the same rights that I do. It's just
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
really is.
You get it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, there've been something like 500 anti-trans bills introduced in the US in the last year, I think.
It's breathtaking. Isn't it?
Something like that. I mean, the
Yeah.
trans community is really, really under attack.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it's not a lot of people know a lot of trans people. And so
And that's something that allies can share, Jen. Look, we can say, I love, there are trans people that I love. Like I will have the back of my trans friends.
Yeah,
One of
me
our
too.
chosen kids is non-binary. Like,
Yeah.
come after the trans community. I love too many people who are trans. I love too many trans folks for me to shut up. Like, trans people exist. They're not going anywhere. Like, why torture them? Why, so.
Yeah, for what? Yeah.
Right.
Other questions?
Just one more question. So are you going to talk anything about how to become more involved, or, like I'm in Washington State and not, so much on the East Coast, but I would definitely love to, maybe connect, or if you're going to be sending anything out to be more involved. I mean, I know we do have a very strong LGBTQA plus community here, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that there might be an opportunity just to maybe get in a little deeper than just more on a, you know what I mean, on a higher level. There might be some other needs that are a little deeper.
Yeah, yeah. So go visit your local gay community center.
And if that's to follow, like we all have like social media. Follow, like, my experiences here in Virginia and Arizona. Follow your like Washington State Pride on social media, and follow like whatever if you have a local community organization, follow, I mean, if you walk into the community center, if there's nothing going on, it's going to be like the most boring visit of your life. But like look, hook up with any organizations, on social media, and then you'll see, well, you know what, on Saturday there's going to be,
Yeah.
a diversity market, and they're going to have like queer vendors. So go buy some jewelry,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and
one community resource that I really feel like I need to mention is PFLAG. It's Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. It's really a parent organization for young folks who have come out and become a part of the LGBTQ community. And there are so many great resources at a local PFLAG chapter. That's just a great way to connect.
there's and I feel like showing up is such a big deal. Like, show up, and so if you start following these things, like, I just feel like, here in Virginia we'll have Pride in September, and I just feel like the more of us show up, when the newspaper covers it, it's going to be 25,000 people were in Richmond for Pride.
Yeah.
And like just the numbers matter. Like, and so if you start following, even just follow the pages of, there are, GLSEN, the Gay and Lesbian Student Education Network, and things like that, where you can support the young people, these young kids, and you might find out, well, on Sunday afternoon they're collecting books for GLSEN at John Smith High School. You drop off a couple of books, you just kind of, you support in any way that you can. If you can do a monthly donation to the community center, or the state, like the state organization that's fighting for, here it's Equality Virginia, and they're lobbying in the General Assembly every year to fight the anti-gay bills and to fight the anti-trans bills, and so that's a way to financially support.
I grew up in Arkansas, where they're still very, very hostile to gay kids. And one of the things that Kathy and I have agreed to do is to make a small monthly donation, a sustaining donation, to a gay-focused housing shelter for young people, because so many families, when kids come out, so many families, especially in conservative rural areas, they kick the kids out of the house. If you're going to be that way, you can't be a part of this family, and you're out there with no support at all. And so, that's another way to look for opportunities that support with housing and shelter and food and other kinds of needs for especially young people who have been kicked out of their families and really need resources.
Trans kids. And the other, like, I'm talking about how great and wonderful we are because we support things. We get so much. Here in Richmond, I'll just give the example. Our community center is called Diversity Richmond, and it has a thrift store. Like, I totally love to go thrift shopping. It's an art gallery. It's an art gallery that's free. So you get, like, every other month there's a new exhibit that's free, and you shop at the thrift store, you go through the art gallery. The space hosts, I don't know, at least 20, maybe 30 12-step meetings.
Yep.
Like, every day of the week, 2 or 3 times a day, there's some group in there that's like AA or NA, or so they have 12-step meetings. They they have event space, which they rent to make money, but they'll also give the event space to charitable organizations for free that, if they need to have a meeting space or something like that. So we, this cis straight couple, we get a lot of benefits from this community organization that it's called Diversity, but we're welcome there. And they give so much to our community. That thrift store raises the money that it raises goes to community organizations, and they specifically look for smaller local community organizations that aren't getting, like, they're not going to give money to Planned Parenthood, but they'll give money to a small organization that's helping like gay couples adopt.
Yeah.
So like we Kathy and Ray and our dearest friends, we found because of our work, our time with this community, I think if I had a problem tomorrow, the person on the other end of the phone I'm calling would probably be gay or trans or
Yeah. More likely than not.
Yeah.
So Katina,
Well,
I hope that was helpful,
I
and
think,
did
I
we
think it
answer
goes
your
back
question?
to, I think it goes back to education. Also, I've got gay family, and they can never go back to their home country. The minute they step on their home
Yes.
country, they will be killed, and it is just it's horrific.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part of the community really needs to be embraced and supported, because that's such a lonely feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And heard.
Yeah,
And heard.
immigrants.
I mean, we don't
Yeah.
hear that much about that. And so Katina hasn't been at ARC that long, but we should
Yeah,
talk.
I feel like
'cause
it.
because I'm leading the ARC Pride group, so we should talk.
All right.
And,
Okay.
find ways for you to get involved. We love our allies.
I love Katina's name.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you, any other questions before I jump into more? Sorry. Anyone? Okay. So you mentioned, Kat, the work that Equality Virginia is doing and at the Capitol.
Right.
You've been involved in that. Like, what is that?
Yeah, the Equality Virginia, it's why, I follow them on social media. In Virginia, the General Assembly comes into session early in January, typically runs till the middle of March. And that's when, all the bills get proposed and voted on. And so everybody and their brother lobbies at the General Assembly. So we go, like, Equality Virginia, they'll have a lobby day, like a big lobby day where, everybody goes and shows up, and, you go over to the offices and you meet with your delegate, here are their delegates, your delegate, your senator. Many times you're just meeting with the legislative aide, but you come in and, identify yourself. I'm a constituent and we're against, bill XYZ, and we're for, bill this and that and the other. But then after that, as the bills go through, and some survive, some don't, they'll have committee meetings. And at those committee hearings, you can speak. You can actually speak to the members of the committee that will decide whether this bill is going to advance. And so it's professional lobbyists, people that come in and it's their job to lobby for, the Farmers Association or the Automobile Association or whatever it is. And so I'll go there and speak as a a citizen of Virginia, and a straight woman, a retired nurse, a cisgender woman, and speak out that, like, hurting my trans neighbors is bad. I'm a senior citizen, so I want the best doctors and nurses and professionals in Virginia that I can get. And if they're gay or lesbian or bisexual or trans, please hire that. I don't want them to be afraid that they can't work here or they can't live here. I want them to be protected. So, and I'll speak as a mom and a grandmother, so that whatever we need spoke, if I need to sound more professional or more mom, that's what we'll do. But I don't hesitate to speak and, address these senators and delegates.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and actually, it just makes me think, like, there's allies supporters and like advocates, and you guys are like off the chart on the advocate. You know what I mean? Like it's this continuum, and you're not on the chart because you have done so much for the community.
Well, we don't have anything to risk. Like we're not going to, like Ray's not going to get fired.
Yeah.
Because yes, you think we're so, when we were doing this boots on the ground work, back in Arizona, we weren't going to get fired for being out. And they're not going to take away my marriage. They're not going to, I feel like, I'm just, oh my goodness, you're so great. You're not, you're a straight couple and you're coming out to support us. But we don't have anything to lose. The couples that risk it and put it on the line, man, hats off to them.
And really, the thing that we have gained through this, and I think so, this is a two-way relationship. You don't continue to engage in things that are hurtful or don't benefit you. And the benefit that we get from this, Jen, is family and community. And we have been so warmly embraced and accepted that we really do consider the LGBTQ community to be our own community. We are cis and straight and white and married for a long time, but we all need community, and we've been so warmly embraced. I think that's the huge benefit, and we've gained family from it too. We have additional grandchildren that we wouldn't have had we not been in this community.
And when I say that chosen family, they're a young queer couple here in Richmond that got rejected by their biological families. We just kind of became a family. It just kind of happened. And the idea that, what could my children, my bio children, what could they have done that would make me kick them out of my life? Like these two have biological, there's a biological grandmother out there who's never held these babies, so. Yeah, so
it is crazy.
We have family and dear friends. So it's been a win-win for us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's your win. Yeah, their loss, your win. Yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty amazing. So I do have another question, and this is sort of selfish because I'm leading this ERG within ARC, our employee resource group. And Ray, you have a lot of experience with employee resource groups because you've been in several.
Yeah.
What do you think is the key to success of a good sort of employee resource group?
So inclusivity, I think, Jen. I think part of my story is in Tucson, part of Raytheon as the employer. They were careful in the organization of all of their employee resource groups, but in particular with the LGBT group, to have allies intentionally included. And I came in sort of naive, but there was an opening at the vice chair for that group in Raytheon because a person who was serving in that position had gone on to a different job in a different company. So I was pretty new in this relationship, but the chair said, "Would you consider, stepping into this leadership role as a co-chair?" And it opened me up, and there were so many opportunities to learn and for leadership and to advocate for people who needed that support in the workplace. So an important kind of developmental thing for me as an employee of Raytheon, and it was so foundational that after I left Raytheon and came to the Federal Reserve Bank here in Richmond, one of the immediate things that we did was to seek out the PRISM LGBTQ organization within the Fed. And strangely enough, there was an opportunity to step into leadership for that ERG. And I brought with me that experience, having been in Raytheon and things that I'd learned there. You know, it was important. So I would encourage folks who are working on the health and the sort of the organization and the effectiveness of an ERG to be inclusive and reach out and develop allies, people who, because, you know, certainly as LGBTQ people, you have an important voice, and it's necessary to have that leadership of people in that affinity. However, it's a military term, it's a force multiplier when you include allies, people who reach beyond your bounds and can talk to people in ways that you can't approach other people.
I love that leadership component.
Yes.
And trying to figure out how to, I'm looking at BJ now.
Yeah, I caught on to that. I was trying to keep my mouth shut because, you know.
Yeah, because he is you know, helping develop the leaders at R2, and it sounds like a great opportunity to sort of partner on a leadership development within our employee resource group potentially. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did a 24-year career in the Air Force. Same time period. Thank you guys as well. By the way, families, if you're a part of that whole experience, you're probably just as much as part of the success as anyone else. So, but so I was in before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and saw some of the same things that you saw. People, highly qualified, highly skilled people, literally ejected from the Air Force just for, you know, their orientation. And it was sad to see that happen. And I also remember when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was signed, it was quite controversial even then, even though it was like, okay, you can be gay in the military, but you just can't tell anybody, right? Which is still really being in the closet, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And I think this thing about allyship, as somebody who identifies cisgender, white male, it is easier for us, right? But it is also very important. And I love the force multiplier thing about allies, because, you know, we didn't win any wars without allies, quite frankly.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to work with Jennifer on this as well, because we've also not only working on this, but we're also made a great friendship. So that's also nice too.
Yes.
Exactly. So we're about to run out of time, but I have one more question that kind of, I want to like end on a happy, positive note. At least I hope so. So you have young people in your lives. I mean, partly because you're super involved in the community in Richmond, the LGBTQ plus community, your kids, like, what do you think? What do you think this looks like going forward? I mean, like, what are your kids seeing and experiencing today that's gonna make the world look different in the future?
I'm really optimistic, which is unusual. I'm from Philly. Our kids are so much better off than we, you know, like I said, I went to Catholic school and no one was out. I mean, no one was out when I went to public school. No one was out. My kids had out classmates, and by college it was and so they're in their late 30s, 40s, early 40s. And you know, it was never an issue for them. Like, their friends weren't closeted, and God, the kids growing up now, like, just even their little baby books, you know, like their board books have, you know, a parent with 2 dads, 2 moms, you know, I'm optimistic. I think my kids will do a better job than we did. And I'm saying my kids, but their generation. I'm going to say that age group is going to do a better job than we did. And I gotta believe the Grand's generation is going to be way better off.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm really optimistic about that. I think that we have to be clear-eyed in the forces that are arrayed to take rights away from us. And you know, in much the same way that we talked about marriage being a public good. I think that the rights of LGBTQ and especially transgender people to exist as who they are,
Good.
authentic, is really a public good. And I think that we need to be clear-eyed about being able to protect and continue the progress that we have made so far. And that's my sort of my closing thought and my view for the future is that this certainly is still something worth fighting for, the threats that we face, but I'm really optimistic about the outcomes. I think we're for a bright future.
Go young people.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You two, I mean, I know you don't feel like you've done more than anyone else, but you really are the best. I'm gonna get t-shirts made for you that just say show up in like rainbow colors,
Yeah.
because I think
Show up.
that's, yeah, because I
that's
think
it.
that's kind of like what you've done, you know, since you showed up at the center that first day.
Yeah.
You're showing up at, you know, the Hill to do advocacy work. You're showing up at tables, at events to just speak for the community. And that's not that easy, really, because we all have busy lives and there's other things we could be doing. But you guys have done a great job of showing up for the last 20 plus years. So,
Oh, you're sweet, Jen.
so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone, for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm pleased that we had pretty good turnout. Thank you very much. And if you want to get more involved in the ARC Pride group, reach out to me. And hopefully we'll be doing some more sessions like this in the future. Thank you, Kathy and Ray. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much for
Thanks,
having us.
Jennifer. Good job.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.